right, guys, yoga Q&A. These questions are from Instagram. Let's just get right to it. First question, will yoga give me visible muscle tone and keep me thin? I used to do intense workouts and want to switch. Question number one isn't playing around. This is a tough one to answer because it depends on a lot of different factors. Weight has more to do with your diet than I would say your movement practice. But as someone with a lot of experience with yoga who came from a background of exercising a lot more intensely, I will tell you that I'm much thinner now eating my plant-based diet and doing a lighter sort of yoga practice than I was working out in a gym or doing high intensity cardio exercises. Now, it depends on what kind of yoga you're gonna practice, how intensely you're gonna practice, how often you're gonna practice. Now, I can go do a 20-minute yoga practice of light stretching, and is that gonna build muscle tone? No, it's not. But I can also go do a, hour-long or 45-minute long power yoga class that is a really strong flow and incorporates, more advanced asana and just more strength building postures. And yes, that is absolutely 100% enough to build muscle tone in your body. I can also tell you from my experience with my website, Banana Blondie Yoga, I've been kind of coaching women on how to thrive on this lifestyle of eating plants and doing yoga. And I have seen so many women come to the site and come to a yoga practice that have a background of high intensity workouts, and they always struggled with their weight. There seems to be this pesky last 5 or 10 pounds that they don't really feel should naturally be a part of their body, but they're always struggling. They're struggling with their hunger, they're struggling with their workouts, and they're struggling with that last bit of weight that they're not comfortable with. And then once they kind of let go of all of that, let go of the intense workouts, develop a regular yoga practice every day. I definitely recommend walking every day too. That weight just seems to fall off and disappear. So I think it's the way to go. I think it's a great way to maintain your weight long term, and it's enough, but again, it depends. Do your kids love yoga? No, they don't. They fucking hate it. They think it's stupid and boring. I'm just kidding. They don't like yoga. No, they definitely don't like yoga. And I do workouts with my daughter. She'll do some Pilates stuff, and she'll do my booty workouts. But the ones, sometimes we'll do a class of mine that incorporates yoga and booty, and she'll be like, God, this is awful. I really hate the yoga. It's really hard, and it's frustrating for her. No, she doesn't enjoy it. But do they think it's stupid and dumb? I don't think so. I think they see the value in it. They see what it does for me and how much I enjoy it and how it's improved my life. So I don't think they think it's stupid and dumb, but you won't see them in a yoga class anytime soon. Do you do yoga every day? No, I don't do yoga every day, but I get on my mat at least 5 days a week and do a yoga practice, I would say. Sometimes I'm only there for 15 minutes because that might be all I have time for or all I have the energy for. But yeah, I get on my mat most days, but not every single day. How long would you recommend practicing yoga before becoming a teacher? So that's a great question. I get a lot of questions from people who are interested in teaching or people who just did a teacher training. And I think that when you feel the call to become a yoga teacher, that's the time to go take a teacher training. So there's a pretty wide range of backgrounds from people that go into teacher trainings. And a lot of people will go into a teacher training just to deepen their practice. They don't necessarily think that they're going to come out of it and go on to teaching. But if you're feeling that draw, that call to do a teacher training, I would say just do it. It doesn't matter if you've been practicing yoga for 10 years or 6 months. If you feel like you want to deepen your practice and you want to learn more about it and you want to maybe take some steps to sharing this practice with everyone, I think just do it. There's no standard measurement or anything like that. Just go for it. Is there such a thing as too many yoga pants? Asking for a friend. I know you're expecting me to say that there is not such a thing as too many yoga pants, and I do love yoga pants, and I do love getting new yoga pants. And yeah, I love yoga pants and I love cute stuff, but I also don't like hoarding stuff. I'm not a person that likes to have a lot of stuff. So when I go into my closet, I don't like it to be overwhelming and oppressive. So I keep my yoga pants collection pretty fresh. I don't hold on to a lot of stuff. If I haven't worn it in 6 months or something like that, then I usually give it away to a friend or something like that. So I think you can have too many yoga pants, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna ever stop buying them. because I do like yoga pants. Do you think genetics play a part in how flexible someone can get? 100% they play a part in how flexible someone can get. Genetics play a role in everything having to do with your body, right? But what I don't want people to do is to get stuck in thinking that their genetics are limiting them, because chances are your genetics are not limiting you as much as your mind is, right? So I'll give you my own practice as an example. I used to think that would never be able to do a handstand because of my genetics, because my arms were too long, because I had scoliosis, because I am too flexible in my back, or I'm not strong enough, or whatever. I thought that all of these sort of genetic things that were natural for me would make it impossible for me to do that. And I was 100% wrong. And the minute I stopped making excuses about my genetics or whatever, and just started practicing the correct way, I was able to learn relatively quickly to hold a handstand for a few seconds at least. So while genetics do play a role, do not get caught in that trap of thinking, or else they will hold you back. It's in your head, chances are. Most of it's in your head. Once a student develops a consistent practice, they almost always surprise themselves with what they're able to do. Are there any yoga poses you think are bad for sciatica and should be avoided? Sciatica can be made worse by stretching. It kind of depends on what is causing your sciatica. A lot of times it's a slipped disc or something like that. And in that case, you need to kind of rest and heal it. I actually have a class on the site, Yoga Bye Bye Sciatica it's called, and it incorporates a lot more, not just stretching, but different exercises you can do to help your sciatica heal. I always say check with your doctor and ask them if there's any movements that you should stay away from while you're healing, and that's a good place to work from there, because you can modify any sort of movement practice based on things that you should be avoiding. And here's another question. I have a ton of these questions. I'm not going to read all of the ones about back pain, but best poses for lower back pain. Sometimes I can't move anything and I just lay down for 30 minutes. So first of all, I empathize with you so much. I have a lot of experience with back pain, not anymore, thank God, but over 20 years ago when I started to practice yoga, I had really debilitating back pain. You guys have probably heard this story a million times, but I do have scoliosis. I had terrible back pain where I would lay on the ground for basically months at a time. It was terrible. And it just depends on what is kind of causing your back pain. Again, if you have some sort of physical problem, if you have an injury, you want to ask a doctor what movements you should stay away from. And then from there, you can develop a practice. For me and my situation with my scoliosis, I felt relief right away once I started a regular yoga practice, and it was incredibly helpful to me. So yoga can be very, very helpful, and I have multiple classes on the site for yoga for back pain and stuff like that. But again, you want to check with a doctor, especially if you have an injury. So I didn't really answer that question because they did ask about specific poses, and I have to answer it like this. There's no one magical pose that is good for, you know, this ailment, and this ailment is good for this pose. And it doesn't really work like that. It's a yoga practice overall. There's not one pose that will, you know, work out some part of your body that will alleviate the pain there. It's just overall, everything is connected, right? Your entire body is so deeply connected, much more so than you realize. For example, if my foot is tight, it's going to affect the mobility in my neck. 100% true. So you can't just go at it as looking at the foot if I'm having foot pain, right? You have to go at it through the whole body. You have to go into it looking at everything as a whole versus this body part, this body part, this body part. It's all connected. You know, if you have knee pain, it's not necessarily something wrong with your knee. You might have a tight IT band. If you have hip pain, it might be a tight psoas, or it might be a tight shoulder. If we have carpal tunnel syndrome, oftentimes it's tightness up here. So there's not one way to go at it. Look at it as a whole and dive into a yoga practice that addresses the entire body. This is an interesting question. Experience any downsides to improved flexibility? For example, more prone to certain injuries. I have not experienced any downside to improved flexibility, but I think that you can experience that, especially for a person that's hypermobile. If you're too flexible and you have hypermobile joints or whatever, you can kind of dump into your joints. For example, if you're one of those people with like hyperextending knees and you're not aware of that and you're just stretching without developing the strength to support the joints, you can fall into injury there. But again, it comes back to having a balanced and mindful practice. So in every yoga posture, there is the two elements, right? So there's effort and there's ease, right? When we're lengthening one part of the body, say, for example, when I extend my arm like this, I'm lengthening the front of my arm right here, the inner arm, and I'm engaging this arm. So the effort is here and the ease is here, right? So every posture has this element of stability and muscle engagement. And then it has another side of it where the muscles are lengthening and softening and relaxing. And if we're doing that properly, we're not going to have any negative side effects from increasing our mobility. I have diastasis recti. Can I do yoga? Excellent question. So if you don't know what diastasis recti is, it's a condition that oftentimes women have after pregnancy where the abdominal muscles kind of separate. And sometimes it requires surgery to fix it, but oftentimes you can heal it on your own. But during that time that you're healing, you don't want to do certain things in a yoga practice. You don't want to do a lot of abdominal exercises. You don't want to do a lot of plank. You certainly don't want to do back bending. So I have a class on Banana Blondie Yoga that is specifically for diastasis recti. It's not a very typical yoga class, but it does incorporate a lot of different exercises that are going to help you bring those abs back together and heal. Again, this is something that you can go over with your doctor. You can even Google it and see what postures you would need to avoid in a yoga practice, and you can kind of do a beginner practice while avoiding those postures. So yes, you can practice yoga, but it's going to look a lot different until you heal. These are really good questions. I like them. Does diet affect your flexibility? So I would say that diet affects your ability to recover. So if we're eating like a junky diet that's, causes a lot of inflammation in the body, it's, our body's not going to recover as fast, right? But if we're eating a diet of whole plant foods and lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, and we're really hydrated, hydration is super duper important for your muscles to not be tight and carry a lot of tension. So if we're eating healthy, we're staying hydrated, it's going to improve our recovery time, allowing us to practice more and practice more intensely while not needing a lot of downtime. So in that sense, it can definitely be a big part of your flexibility journey. Do you feel more alive and in shape in your 20s or right now? I definitely feel better right now. In my 20s, I just didn't take very good care of myself. I was a typical person in my 20s and I ate junk food, I partied too much, my early 20s, I worked late in nightclubs, like I drank a lot of alcohol, did that whole party lifestyle thing. I was smoking cigarettes. So no, I definitely feel better now because I take much better care of myself. I feel really good now, and I would have to say better now. When did you start to practice yoga? So I started practicing yoga when I was 23 years old. I'm 44 now, so that was 21 years ago. I can do math. Best poses for tight hamstrings. Great question. A lot of people come to a yoga practice have super tight hamstrings. If you are one of those people that have super duper tight hamstrings, I really like half split or Ardha Hanumanasana. This is a great pose. If you don't know what it is, you can kind of like look it up and Google it. It's really simple posture, and it is just as useful for someone who is a splits master as it is for someone who is just beginning to stretch their hamstrings. I like that, and I also like reclined postures, so laying down on your back and using a strap and like drawing the leg in closer and closer. That's a really great way to access the hamstring without compromising your spine. Sometimes when we're in a seated forward fold and we have our legs extended out and we're trying to, stretch our hamstrings this way, we like do this thing where we round our back and like you compromise your spine. So you're rounding and it's not really getting to your hamstrings. You can hurt yourself that way. But all of that is taken out of the equation if you're laying down on your back and you're using a strap. So that's my recommendation. Binds, they feel impossible. So in yoga, we have a lot of postures that we have the option to bind in. And I really like binding, probably because it's been relatively easy for me to bind because I have these freaky long like orangutan arms, and like binding just kind of comes naturally to me, and I really like the security and the feeling in the pose when I am bound. But you can still bind even if it feels impossible. You just use a strap. So the goal is to have that feeling, right? That sensation of binding and that connection. It doesn't matter if you're using a strap or you're able to reach your hands and grab onto the other hand or the other wrist. It's the same thing, right? So we're just looking at the purpose of the posture. So binding in a yoga posture allows us to move more deeply into that posture. It allows us to hold the posture for longer and sort of soften and relax into it in a way that we don't when we're not bound in the posture. So it doesn't matter at all if you're achieving this with the use of a strap or if you're able to grab onto the wrist or the hand or anything like that. You're still gonna have the same effect. So don't worry about getting the bind. It's not important, just use a strap. Here's the question, should I be warming up my muscles first with light cardio or jogging, etc.? Great question. When we're looking to increase our range of motion and work with flexibility, we want to be really warm. How warm? Warm enough to maybe break a light sweat. That's when we know that we're gonna be able to move deep into our postures, open up the body, lengthen the muscles, and increase our flexibility. So the yoga classes on my site are designed to warm you up properly without having to do a pre-warm-up. However, if you're in a really cold climate and you're not in a warm room, I generally practice in a room that is not below 72 degrees. So if you're practicing in a room that is like 65 degrees or something, you might not be able to get warm enough with that yoga practice. So warming up beforehand could be helpful. One thing I like to say to people that have a harder time getting warm is you can drink some hot tea before your practice. You can do a hot shower or a hot bath. That will really warm you up. And I still use space heaters everywhere. I have a space heater right here in my room for when I practice. I don't care if it's 75 degrees outside, I'm probably gonna turn on the space heater. I don't like hot yoga, side note. I really hate hot yoga. You will not see me in a room that's 100 degrees, but I do like, 75 and up for yoga. So I have my space heater here, have one in my yoga room. So I do these things. You can certainly add a warm up before your yoga practice if you want to do a little jog or a walk or something like that. That could work too. Okay, we're gonna do one more. This video is ridiculously long. Why do I feel so awkward in Warrior One? My hips/feet don't get it. You feel awkward in Warrior One because it is a really awkward pose. I still feel awkward in it sometimes because your back foot is at like an angle and your front foot is forward, yet your hips are supposed to be forward. So it feels awkward. It's truly an awkward pose. You're not gonna find one person that's like, oh yeah, Warrior One, super not awkward. It's fucking awkward. So if you're feeling really awkward in it, like you can't quite square your hips, it's totally okay to step the back leg in a little bit closer to the front leg so that you can have the hips a little more squared without so much torque on your knee and all of that jazz. Another thing that you can do in Warrior One is to take the feet a little bit further apart from each other. So say, this is your forward foot and your backward foot. Normally you're like this. You can move them a little bit further apart so that they're maybe hips distance apart, and that can help give you a little more balance. It can take some of the stress off of the back knee. But yeah, it just takes practice like anything else, but it's a super awkward pose. You're not alone. All right, guys, I'm completely sick of hearing myself talk. That was it. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A, and I will see you all real soon. Mwah.